Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's BoF Live. My name is Rahul Malik. I'm BoF's Managing Director in North America and also the head of BoF Insights, which is a new data and analysis think tank from the business of fashion. I'm very grateful, very excited to be facilitating today's discussion. The topic, as you all know, is the rise of resale luxury as currency. And this has been an incredibly important topic and one that we've been very fortunate to explore over the past weeks and months with eBay. We've spent that time researching consumer behavior about luxury resale, specifically focusing on the extent to which consumers see luxury as an asset and even a currency, and how that perception is driving resale activity, how that perception is evolving resale as an industry. So before I get started and introduce today's amazing guests, I want to very briefly run through some administrative points. I know many of you have joined these BoF Lives before, so please bear with me. The first is that our BoF community is a global one. And so as always, as we're beginning to gather today, we'd love for you to share where you're based using the chat function. I'm based in New York. It was a cold morning. It's sunny now, which is really exciting. As always, throughout the discussion, we're very excited to involve our audience. So time permitting, at the end, we'll have the audience ask questions directly to our panelists. If you have a question for our panelists and you've not already submitted it to us, you can do so at any point during the event. Just please make sure to do so using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you just put your question in the chat, we'll probably miss it. If you're selected to ask a question live, you'll hear directly from your team. When you're coming on screen, please make sure to turn on your video and audio. We want to make sure, our panelists want to make sure that we are able to see and hear your questions at the end. Otherwise, throughout, please feel free to use the chat to share any comments or reactions with the rest of the audience. We love a dynamic and engaging chat. And of course, if you need any other support during the event, our team is standing by. You can reach them at events@businessoffashion.com, and they will get back to you promptly. And so with those points out of the way, I want to formally begin today's event. In a moment, I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. I'll then spend a few minutes sharing a summary from the research that we've been doing with eBay over the past weeks, before spending most of that time bringing those findings to life in discussion with our guests. We're very lucky to have two panelists who have a wealth of leadership and entrepreneurial experience in this space. They've played a pretty pivotal role in defining the industry and evolving it today. And so I want to ask them to introduce themselves, what they do, and share a bit about their own journeys. And Tirath, I thought we might first start with you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rahul, and excited to be here, especially with Sarah. I think her and I have known each other for, I don't even know how many years, I've lost count, but I'm the general manager of global luxury at eBay. It's really exciting to be here. I just came back from 2 weeks of really working with our teams, both in the European and UK markets, and how we're expanding luxury globally. So I've been at eBay about 3 years, running the luxury categories. We've done some exciting things in innovation, right? Authenticity guarantee, really leveraging that as a factor to drive trust and transparency in the marketplace, and starting to take control in the middle and actually physically checking pieces like watches. And it's been great to see what we've done at eBay, right? And really change perception. Before this, I was in the venture capital industry, investing into consumer commerce, but I also had my own company for 6 years called TrueFacet.com in New York City, in the luxury marketplace space, where we raised 30 million in funding and sold in 2019. So again, really excited to be here and excited to talk about the future of luxury resale, and especially its rise as a currency.
Amazing. Thank you. Sarah, it's good to see you. Over to you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, and we crossed paths, Tirath and I, in a couple ways. Number one, I always give credit to eBay as my launch pad, my incubator. I started selling on eBay in 1999. Potentially a lot of people actually who are listening in on this call, I was a gigger in those early days of eBay, and grew the business from there. We went and developed our own website in 2007, and were bootstrapped until 2019 when our first investors joined us, and that's Neiman Marcus was an amazing strategic partner for us, and so we'll talk about that later. But I also bought this ring from TrueFacet. So this is true fact. I'm a huge fan of resale. I love every resale platform. I still use eBay. I love The RealReal. I love ThredUp. I use StockX. I use all the platforms and love them. And so I'm excited to talk about this today.
Amazing. Thank you, Tirath. Thank you, Sarah. So as I mentioned, I'm going to spend just a minute or two sharing some of the findings from the research report that we published today that we've been working on for the past weeks and months with eBay. As I mentioned, what we were exploring was consumer behavior about resale, specifically focusing on the extent to which consumers are seeing luxury as an asset and as a currency, and the effect that that's having on the industry. Our research involved surveying about 1,000 consumers in the US, focusing on luxury shoppers and specifically focusing on their consumption of a few specific categories: designer bags, watches, jewelry. We released the findings of the research today in a report that's freely accessible on Business of Fashion, so please download the report after this discussion to learn more. But what I'm going to do now, however, is very briefly share some summary findings before turning to the discussion. Our overall takeaway was that luxury shoppers, the ones that we surveyed, were telling us that they're seeing luxury as a dependable asset. And what that meant to us is something that can retain value, something that can possibly appreciate in value, and perhaps most interestingly, something whose value is perceived to be less volatile than other assets. And those other assets can be investments, perhaps in stocks or houses or cars or even cash, if you consider the current inflationary environment. And you can see here that we found that 80% of surveyed luxury shoppers believe that the value of their luxury accessories, their handbags, their watches, their jewelry, to be less volatile than, or at least as volatile as their other assets. And that more than half, about 60% of these shoppers believe the value of their accessories will appreciate if they care for the condition of them. And I think what was interesting to us as we were doing this research was understanding the degree to which shoppers were using resale platforms to check the current value of their luxury accessories. You can consider shoppers seeing their luxury accessories, the ones that they own, as some sort of portfolio, and using resale sites like eBay and Fashionphile to help to understand the market value of those items. Some consumers, about a third, were telling us that they do that as often as once a year. Of course, in the context of resale, authentication is an incredibly important topic. We know that not just platforms themselves, but buyers and shoppers are very focused on making sure that the goods that they're interested in, that they're transacting about, are real, have not been modified in any way. And it was interesting to us to learn that about 1 in 4 shoppers at some point feel like they might have crossed paths with a fake luxury accessory. It's no surprise then that when we asked shoppers what's the single most important feature that would encourage them to purchase a secondhand item, a secondhand luxury accessory, it's physical authentication. It's someone physically inspecting an item. And both Tirath and Sarah, I know you've led initiatives at both of your companies and are leading initiatives that are cutting edge in some sense in terms of making that kind of physical authentication a reality and an easy one. So I'm excited to explore that with you. And so I want to turn now to the discussion, and I'll bring more findings from our work throughout the discussion. But where I thought we could start is just given Tirath and Sarah, how long both of you have been in this space, the degree to which you've seen it evolve. I thought your bird's eye perspective on that evolution would help to frame the rest of the discussion. And so Tirath, I thought we could start with you. If you think about resale, not 10 years ago, but even just a year or two ago, can you talk me through how you see the evolution of that space to where we are today as we're ending 2022 and looking ahead?
No, it's a great question, Rahul, and awesome research. I mean, even if you look at it, like a long time ago, people will actually buy expensive luxury goods online and they're going to be pre-owned. Like nobody would have thought. And what we're seeing now, especially over the last 2-3 years, is that we've seen increased demand, like pent-up demand, macroeconomic factors, new vintage trends, and a lot of increased confidence in e-commerce, right? And one of the big areas that's really, really driving this is consumers' interest in rare, unusual, highly personal and unique items, and also the factor of sustainability and rising conscious consumerism, right? And these things are major drivers. And what we're seeing is like, because of these major drivers, we're expecting the market to keep growing about 12% year on year. I mean, some estimate even by 2030, the appetite for pre-owned, especially in luxury, will hit about $100 billion. So a huge market opportunity. And one of the major factors is like, who is the new consumer coming into this category, especially as you look forward? And it is this younger generation. And people talk about Gen Z, but Gen Z really does care about pre-owned. They care about buying recycled goods. They care about what their behavior and their purchase is doing to the environment. And that's a really big driving factor, right? And we found even at eBay that in the last 12 months, 80% of Gen Z preferred buying pre-owned versus new. And that trend's just going to get stronger and stronger. The other big area is across the categories that both Sarah and us at eBay and luxury actually sell in luxury, handbags, jewelry, watches, and others, scarcity has become even a big factor, right? It's go to the store right now. Can you even find a brand new Rolex? Can you find some great Hermes Birkin bags or Kelly bags easily? It is very hard, right? And we believe that more and more the demand's actually rising. Supply is not keeping up. There's a huge scarcity factor. And as a result, we've seen prices rise in the secondary market. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but that's also a huge driver to how luxury is becoming a currency. And what we're finding at eBay, not only in our US market, but US, UK, and the German market, is that non-new in season accounts for 90% of our top line sales. And that's just all these numbers and data are proving that these trends are for real and that they're just going to get stronger.
Thank you for that. Sarah, I'd love for you to just build upon that, given a lot of your experience.
Yeah, I love, I mean, there's so much here. We could have an all day conversation, but I'm a huge, I've seen as well, kind of the behavior change. Since I was young, we've looked at, when you look at buying a car, you think which one of these cars has the better resale value, and you might be willing to pay a little more for the car with better resale value. Everybody knows Tesla's resell really well right now. So you might spend a little bit more on the Tesla because you're going to get more on the resale. We're seeing this now in luxury accessories 100%. People are very interested in saying, what can I buy that is going to hold its value? Because not everything is the same, that some products actually that we sell do hold their value better than others. There's actually kind of a philosophy that Warren Buffett has in investing. And he talks about when you make an investment in something you understand. And we have right now this, what's blown up this week with FTX and all the cryptocurrencies. Honestly, there's a part of that which there's people just don't understand the basic fundamentals. And when you look at what we're doing, you look at the history of how a Rolex is selling over time. It's easy to understand, and people are really spending their money. We've seen that. People have asked us, why have we seen this real growth in the last few years? And part of it is I'm like, people are speculating in a lot of different ways. And when they're investing with and buying a Chanel flap or a Rolex or an Hermes Birkin, it's not very speculative. We've seen historically over time, those products just continue to rise in value as their retail price goes up in value. The resale price is hitched to that. And even
Right.
if it's not, even if there might be softness here and there, it's still like people are like, oh, Rolex is softening right now. They're still selling significantly over retail for a new Rolex. That price is potentially, again, it's a StockX has an interesting look at the resale price pinpointed at a moment, which is super interesting. And that works for a new item in box, like sneakers. Don't open the box. And my son takes his sneakers and puts them on a shelf and he never looks at them again because he doesn't want to touch that investment. But at Fashionphile, and I love eBay's pop-up that you did, the sneaker pop-up in LA that was like, wear them out, freaked out the sneakerheads. They had to wear the sneakers out of the store. That'll really make a sneakerhead panic. But like in our world, those investments you can actually use, you can carry, you can wear. And it's kind of like the price is more of a range. If it's in new condition, it's here. If it's got a bottle of nail polish spilled in the bottom of that Birkin, heaven forbid, it's down here. And that's a roving price that actually is kind of like a stock market of things. And today there's a market price for a pre-owned item, and potentially it's not where it was 6 months ago. And some things actually could be higher and some could be lower. Those prices soften over time. And it's really an interesting, similar to buying and selling stock. We at Fashionphile believe in we're going towards B Corp. We get our lights hitched to movement in the room. I'm not moving enough, so it's like dark in here. So I'm gonna let Tirath talk. I'm gonna see if I can trigger my lights to go back on. You said you wanted to keep it real, so we're keeping it real.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
having lived in New York before, sometimes the sun goes in and out, right?
You just have to deal with it. Sarah, I thought what was interesting that you mentioned was the reference to buying secondhand cars, because something that's always struck me is just the infrastructure that's available around that. In terms, you could have the Kelly Blue Book, you have so much data that really, on the level of a specific feature helps you to judge or understand what the used value might be. And I think what's so interesting in the world of luxury is, to some degree, a lot of that input is cultural cachet. Some of the brands you were referencing, some of the products you were referencing have this enduring quality that I think drives and creates a floor for their resale value. And that's this valuable, critical piece of helping a customer really think that, yes, this is an asset. Yes, this is a piece of currency. But I want to take a step back. We've introduced this concept of luxury as an asset. Tirath, you yourself were mentioning this as you've seen the industry evolve. Can you both help me and help the audience identify some of the differentiating dynamics that have made that a reality? We have a unique economic backdrop. We have price increases that brands have been doing on the primary market. It feels like there are a number of dynamics that are coming together to make this concept feel particularly real. And I'd love to just hear you both unpack that.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take that one. No, look, I totally agree with you. And it is becoming a very stronger and stronger, what we call alternative asset class, right? And I think as time goes on, we'll see that more. But look at what's happening in the market. We've had record inflation. We've had supply chain situations. A lot of that's driven scarcity as well. And as a result, a lot of the luxury assets have just gone up in price. But also the other thing driving that is, just like my father and grandfathers always loved talking about the stock market, mutual funds, 401ks, this younger generation is starting to look at investments in a very different way. And so, Sarah, you brought this up too, like people really care about their passions, right? I think another big driver here is like, I want to invest in things that I know and that I'm passionate about. And if I'm really passionate about like luxury watches or handbags or cars or sneakers or jewelry, I want to go invest in those things. Now, when I go invest in those, I need to make sure I have enough data and information to do it the right way. And that's where I believe a huge driving factor is a transparency situation. And at eBay, we've always believed we're like a market barometer, given the millions of products we have and millions of transactions that we have. Like we see jewelry, for example, we sell like 8 pieces of jewelry almost every minute. And a lot of that data actually allows consumers to know like, what is the pricing in the market, transactional pricing? We have a tool called Terapeak that allows you to go gain that pricing. And many of our sellers actually use that to buy and sell on eBay, just keep trading. And so I really strongly believe that it is passion-driven investing. And more people are having a lot more fun investing into these assets than they do with the stock market. And that's one of the reasons we built a 31,000 square foot facility in Delaware called the Vault. We started with trading cards where you can actually hold your trading cards there, never has to leave, and people can basically invest into it. And we do expect to roll that out in the near future with luxury as well, or maybe you can buy a fractional share of that. So a lot of different exciting innovations happening around alternative investments in luxury. And I think a lot of that's going to take off in the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think honestly, what we're talking about today, what's fun, that's more fun than baseball cards to me is like wearing the ring and then selling it in 10 years. The fact that I can use the investment, that it's actually not going down in value. This ring is not going down in value as I wear it every day. I could wear it for 10 years. And how fun is that? And then it's continued to rise in value. And so what is it, about the products that we sell that keeps their value so well? And I really feel like the brand value, the conscientiousness with which these brands put into, really elevating and keeping, really focusing and honing in on that brand value helps the resale value. We see that in luxury, but any brand that cares about their brand has good resale value. Look at brands like Patagonia. It's not a resale brand, but it's great brand value, and it's got good resale to retail ratio value because of the brand value. And I found something that, we did a study that came up with something similar to what you found in your study. A couple, like last year when we did research on when does a Chanel bag end up in a landfill was the question that brought us into this study. And one of the things we found is that when people pay a lot of money for a product, they actually are going to take care of it better. They're going to keep it longer in the first place. They're going to take care of it. If I paid $3,600 for this bag, I'm not putting it on the floor. I'm going to store it properly. And then they're going to pay for professional repairs and mending along the way. And I feel like that's just a better way to go. Buy less really quality things, as quality as you can afford. And what's awesome is through eBay, through Fashionphile, and through a lot of our friends in resale, people have access. You can buy a Chanel bag for less than a Coach or a Tory Burch bag. Quite frankly, if you're willing to go for a vintage bag that's been traveled around the globe, you can actually carry a really lovely vintage piece that's got high brand resale value, and you have access to that. And so, I feel like what we're doing is making the better way to shop more accessible to everyone.
It's interesting you said, Sarah. Actually, one thing is interesting, exactly what you said, like a Chanel bag could actually be less in cost than Coach, because you can buy it, let's say at 3,000, wear it for 2 years and sell it and actually get more money back than you would have with that Coach bag. It's almost better than renting. It's like appreciation of value and just keep trading and trading up, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
But I mean, the other thing I actually hear both of you touching upon, though, is, I mean, we talk about luxury as an asset, luxury as currency. Those feel like, some sense, very financial terms. But when I hear you both talking about value, or when I hear you both talking about the passion economy, value in this sense is much more than that. It's the participation and buying into the brand building. It's the use and engagement with a particular product and the care that you might provide for that product. And it feels like it's the sum of all of those items that kind of make this concept feel a bit more enduring than rather some sort of fleeting artifact of a bull market or low interest rates or kind of the other concepts that we often talk about when we're talking about asset prices. I want to take a step back. We focus our work on a few specific categories: designer bags, watches, and jewelry. I mean, these are categories that you both know very, very, very well. What is it about these categories that makes them particularly enduring, that makes them particularly relevant, both in the context of resale, but in the context of luxury as something that has enduring value?
No, that's exciting. I mean, I think one thing is what really makes them really amazing is, I think you got to take a step back and really go to what the brands themselves are doing as well, right? Like how they actually care for their brand equity. They invest into their brand equity. Like for these brands, their name out there in the world, it's everything to them. And some of these brands have been around for decades, if not 100 years, right? And they want to keep maintaining that ongoing value and that ongoing perception in the market. And what we're seeing is that, I mean, the brands still have a lot of work to do to just figure out how they're going to play a role in the pre-owned economy right now. And they're heavily really focused on you, but you are starting to see many of them starting to get in pre-owned, that they are caring about the customers that own their pre-owned merchandise and how to build loyalty on them, because that is part of their brand equity and brand value proposition. So I always have to take it from the brand perspective. And then platforms such as what Sarah has and what we have at eBay are great avenues for consumers to just trade and leverage the currency of their values to be able to sell it and use that money right back on our platforms to buy something new. And hopefully eventually the brands will find ways to play even a stronger role in this new economy.
Exactly. I mean, and also, when you look at the types of products you're talking about here, they're really more classic. When you get into ready-to-wear and other things, you can get more trendy, and things can go very out of trend, to the point where it's almost unusable. If right now low rise is what's happening, all of a sudden your high rise you can almost not wear them unless you get them altered. And a lot of clothing actually does get, especially in the luxury world, does end up getting altered. And so I buy it because I think it's a size 6 and it's actually a size 0 after it's been altered to the waist or whatever. And so it makes it a little more challenging. But in the handbag, and watch and fine jewelry world, really just it's a lot more classic. I mean, this is my own purse with my own junk in it that, I've had this bag that I bought used probably, 10 plus years ago. It's just as cool and I wear it almost every day. You've probably both seen me wear this bag because I use it. It's just like a hands-free bag. I call it crossbody and I can just go about my business. And it's just as cool now as it was when I bought it but the price continues to go up. I could probably sell it today for twice what I bought it for. So again, when you're looking at handbags, watches, these things are just more classic. I mean, Tirath, your ring, it's not, it's just as cool again. It's not something that's going to go, there's not just big wild, swings in trends. And even, okay, yellow gold might be popular to some people now, and maybe platinum is more, there might be little micro trends like that. But still, there's still an ever increasing, not only the resale brands in the luxury space, every single brand is raising their prices once, twice. This is not everybody. It's like, headline news right now in the Wall Street Journal that how much some of these brands are raising their prices. But we know in the resale space, this is something they've always done. Maybe not as much as they've done recently, but always they've raised their prices once, sometimes twice a year. As long as I've been in business for 20 years, this is a regular thing that all of the brands have always done with these classic styles. And so, as again, like I said, what we know is that the resale price is hitching on to that retail price. So It's just dragging it slowly up over time.
Do you think there's a ceiling, or is it really just the cumulative investment in brand building? It's the kind of unlocking of luxury as a passion, of something that you can really participate in, that makes this feel, this feel like an inexorable trend.
If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have never expected a Chanel flap was going to be over the $10,000 mark at retail, and is now clearly up in the Birkin Kelly world of pricing. I would have thought there's a ceiling that was before. So I don't know at this point. I mean, they're climbing up there, and guess what? You can't get any, classic flaps. They're more expensive than they've ever been, and you can't get one. Like Tirath said, you're going to wait in line 45 minutes to get into the store, and there's no classic flaps. So,
if you told me same thing, like the Rolex prices will trade 2 to 3x higher than retail. I mean, 4 years ago, I bought a Submariner somewhere in the 8,500 mark. Go try to find that. It's all way above 10K, if not more, right? And that's. I mean, is there a ceiling? Like, no. I mean, like, think it comes back. I'm going to put, because I used to be an investment banker out of undergrad, so I'm going to put a little financial economics hat on. This is just traditional market economics, right? And I think we really have to understand market economics. What are the really core root drivers around economic supply demand here? Because that's what's really, if you can figure out that and drive prediction models, I think that's where we're going to kind of make some guesses on where this market will end up. The other thing I want to state, I know we're all talking about a lot about how great this is as an investment asset, but are really cautious. Just don't invest into things just because you think they're going to go up. Like, invest into them because you actually have a passion about it. Because, they don't always go up, right? There's a lot of limited edition models that the watch industry has launched. And you think limited editions, because they only made 50 of them, all will increase in price. They have not, right? Not all of them. So I think you really do need to do your research and make sure you're investing into something because you just love it and you're passionate about it.
That makes sense. I mean, we talk about value as the concept of retained value, but there's volatility there. And to me, when we're talking, I suppose, about the categories that we're focusing on, there's a very practical, predictable element that I think makes those categories far more attractive in this concept, in this context than others. We've mentioned a few times luxury as currency. This idea that items themselves, consumers are willing to directly exchange them or trade them for other items. And I know both of you, as you built your businesses, are kind of actively exploring and evolving this concept. And so I'd love just to start just to hear about how you've kind of explored and unlocked this idea of luxury as currency.
Yeah, I think for us, sorry, go ahead, Sarah, you want to go?
No, you can start.
For us at eBay, I think the journey when I joined 3 years ago, the biggest part of that was getting authenticity guarantee as a big part. Authenticity is such a critical factor. Without that, I mean, you don't really know what currency you actually own, right? And so with eBay, at eBay, yes, we launched this with an amazing partnership with Still & Company, a very reputable watch organization based out of Ohio that works with a lot of the major brands. So all watches above $2,000 or more on eBay go through them, they check it, they do a multi-point inspection to make sure you're going to get exactly what you saw on the listing. And we issued this really great eBay authenticity guarantee card that some of them have a QR code, some have an NFC chip, but when you scan it, you can see the digital record of what you just bought. Same thing we launched in handbags. And most recently in July, We launched it in jewelry with a great collaboration with the Gemological Institute of America, GIA, one of the most reputable labs, if not the reputable lab in the world. And the first time ever, they've been known to do this with gemstones. Now they're doing this with finished jewelry. And we unlocked some weeks ago where brands like Cartier, Bulgari, Tiffany and Company are now being authenticated and verified, specifically verified by GIA before end consumer gets it. So that alone is a core driving factor. You have to have that strong fundamental. And then it's all about, okay, great. I've been able to resell this. I've been able to resell this successfully. Now I got my, I turned my asset. Maybe it actually ended up making more money on it. Now let me just go find what I want to buy new. And you just constantly see this trading up effect. And that's the reason, not only today, but tomorrow in eBay, we're doing this great initiative called the Luxury Exchange event on 22 West 47th Street in New York, where people can actually get the value of what their luxury assets are worth in real time and use that currency right there to buy something new. And these are just part of a lot of initiatives, primarily because we want to make sure we're playing on the right trends.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. We at Fashionphile, one thing that's unique is I'm calling you from one of our authentication centers. This one's in New York, so I'm gonna go check out your pop-up. That sounds fun, Tirath. But and so here you can actually come in to our authentication centers and you can shop. We have like 25,000 items in our inventory here. You can shop our inventory cage. But what's really exciting, you can also come in and you could get a check today. Walk in, and if I was bringing my Chanel flap, I could get a check for that. 60% of the time, when people come in here to sell us something, they end up buying something. 60% of the time, and so you see that that's what that is. And obviously we give a little kicker. If you sell your item, we'll give you 10% more if you do make that choice. So we've had this ability. It's been something we've done since we've had our authentication centers open to the public in 2007. And so we, do it at both of our centers. But when we did the Neiman Marcus deal, we entered a new world. That you see the circularity in resale, where you sell your pre-owned item and you buy another pre-owned item at Fashionphile authentication centers. But when we did the Neiman Marcus transaction, we opened into 10 Neiman Marcus stores. So it works a little differently there. You walk in a Neiman Marcus store and you're not going to find Fashionphile bags on display. You're not going to see any watch it. You won't. You walk in, you're going to go, this is kind of looks like we're at the room I'm in right now. Oh, this is a lovely space. You maybe wouldn't have any idea what it is we do. Because our job there is not to sell. We sell online. Our job in Neiman Marcus is how can we serve the luxury customers shopping at Neiman Marcus every day? And so she brings in the Gucci backpack she never got much use out of. She's going to go shop shoes or have lunch in the cafe with her girlfriends. We're going to write her a check. Or if she puts out a Neiman Marcus gift card, Neiman Marcus will give her 10% more. That $1,000 gift card we were going to pay is now $1,100 in Neiman Marcus store credit in the store. So for me, when I've got money in the store, that's just like free money. I can do whatever I want with it. It's laundered. My husband's not even asking about it. No, I'm kidding. But and so we find this is very, very elegant, the way that it works, the primary market and the secondary market, that we're able to work hand in hand too. Again, similar idea. And so I find that this is something that, this is something we see, internally, but I do know that people are potentially buying, selling on one resale platform and spending the money on a different platform. Even if they're into resale, our buyers, really, a lot of them are looking for something in particular. And I hope we have it so you can find it from us, but potentially we don't, and you're going to find it from someone else. And that's, again, it's the same circular behavior.
And the word that comes to mind for me is ecosystem, just because I feel like, phase zero of this business, and maybe it's incorrect to frame it this way, but it almost probably felt very transactional. But really what I hear you both describing is, something that feels far more intentional, that feels far more participatory, that there's really kind of something that people are buying into for the long term, that drives something of, something like this concept of luxury as currency. I know one of the really fascinating findings from the work that we did with eBay was this sense that if consumers have the authentication details of a particular item, 1/3 of them were that much more likely to later resell the item. And it feels like when we talk about resale in the context of circularity, it's exactly those kind of dynamics that make that a kind of a practical possible outcome. I was wondering if you both had any specific product examples just over kind of the lifespan of an item. It can pass through many owners. And it occurs to me, and Sarah, I feel like you and I spoke about this once before, that you'll see those items again and again and again. And I'm curious if there are just any examples related to this that you'd be able to share with us and the audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a few things. One thing, as we were talking about this actually in preparation for this call, I looked, and it's interesting because I searched Fashionphile on eBay. And what's interesting is, and it makes me happy to see this, but people are using our tag to say, hey, listen, this is an authentic item. Like you said, you're more confident to be able to resell it if you've got some kind of evidence that it's authentic, because otherwise, as an individual, it's more difficult. If you're selling from a reputable reseller, we've got a long history and a reputation, and we've got return, kind of guarantees. But as an individual, it's more difficult on a peer-to-peer platform. And so people are using that kind of that evidence that this item is authentic. But this is something we see. We have what's, a refresh is what we call it. It's like a buyback program where we'll buy your item back at a set price. You don't need to do a quote or anything. It's more, the shorter you have it, the more you get, the longer you have it, less you get. And we find that we're just buying these items back, 7, 8, 9 times the same item back over and over again. We've been doing this a very long time. And so, this is a behavior that we've seen that it's almost like what you would see like an extended rental where there's equity involved, or, maybe it gives you a little bit of the ability to jump on a trend that you maybe wouldn't, I want to get this particular Bottega bag, that's just a gorgeous bright green. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off for a few seasons, but if I can buy it for now and wear it for 6 months and sell it, then it's, some of the trends you can hop on. If you don't have the money, I mean, there used to be, that was available to people who had money to just buy all the trends and keep them. Well, for the rest of us who don't have that optionality, you're able to buy things and, and then share them with other people who can then just that sharing economy.
Yeah. And Rahul, I totally agree. Like we're seeing now, as we've been processed almost on even over 2.5 million products through authenticity guarantee across our global markets, that we have seen those same products not only come back through our ecosystem, but people are listing it on other places with the eBay authenticity guarantee card, similar to what Sarah just noted with her Fashionphile tags. And so I think as time goes on, more and more of that will come back to the market, especially as people understand their pricing. As you noted earlier, over half the consumers are checking the pricing. We're also finding with Gen Z, not only that I noted earlier, 80% of Gen Z bought pre-owned, but a third of them are reselling in that year. So those goods are coming right back because they want to keep refreshing their life, right? So we'll see a lot of those products come back. And one of the areas I'm very excited about here in the innovation area is a concept we call traceability, right? I always speak about these 3 T's: trust, transparency, and the last one, traceability. Traceability on data and where this product has been is there's a lot of innovation going on in that space. I mean, us processing 2.5 million products, we have the data against what's going through, right? And this is where I believe the future of NFTs and blockchain technologies will evolve in the luxury space. I mean, eBay, I think about 6 months ago, we bought a company out of the United Kingdom called Known Origin in the NFT space. And so really bullish on this, really excited about how NFTs will become the symbol of trust, almost a certificate of trust, because you can't manipulate something when it's been issued in a blockchain. And then you'll have true traceability of product and people being able to buy and sell with a lot more transparency, with authenticity guarantee still being a driver. So I think a lot of these innovations in the market will actually speed a lot of those products coming back into the market as well, Rahul.
Yes.
It's interesting. Sorry, Sarah, please go ahead.
Good. No, I love that, Tirath. I'm a huge believer as well. And I'm very encouraged by what we see with the Aura Blockchain Consortium, which is LVMH and Prada and Richemont, who does like Cartier and Van Cleef and all the jewelry and watch brands, obviously LVMH with Louis Vuitton and Dior and all the lovely LVMH brands coming together to unify around this type of blockchain technology to help with that authentication, to document the life, the potential origin of materials and the life of that product. And so we see the luxury brands starting to come together. I mean, these are different luxury houses that are coming together around this, Aura blockchain consortium, which is very encouraging and very exciting. And Fashionphile would love to participate and help. And, in any way, we find that in the future, Rahul, when you talked about, we talked about the car industry, one of the reasons why that is such a easy, seamless, kind of industry in resale is that I could buy a car on Craigslist. I can look up a VIN number on that thing and it'll tell me, was this car ever stolen? Is it stolen? Is that the owner? I can see, was it ever totaled? I can learn a lot about that car, that who's joining in on that. This is not something that some car manufacturers are doing and some aren't. No, Volkswagen, Tesla, Ford, everybody comes together with the same system. Again, you've got car, I would love to be able to buy a Cartier ring, in the resale and see that when it was made, it was a size 4, but then it was professionally resized in 2014 by this reputable jeweler, and it's now a size 5, or that was resized by Cartier, and kind of get the life of that product. I think there's so much there with Aura blockchain or something like that, as the brands need to come together so that we're all unified, and then resale would have to participate in kind of telling that story as well. I'm very excited. I think that'll really enable the individual, empower individuals and platforms and everyone alike, and brands.
It's interesting because one observation I'm taking away is in the first half of this discussion, one of the things I think that we were talking about was a lot of the activity on the primary market in terms of price increases and brands investing in their brand building is driving a lot of resale activity. It's creating this enduring value for items. But I feel like what I'm also hearing you both describe is the degree to which, as the resale industry and as the luxury resale industry scales and matures, it's driving change in the primary market as well. It's driving change in how brands are thinking about their collections and the investments that they make in, to your point, the traceability of the items that are in those collections that they're selling. A lot of that infrastructure didn't exist for a long time, or to the extent it did exist, it was the amalgamation of a lot of messy data that kind of makes the practical implementation of it really, really challenging, and that's
Right.
changing.
It is, and actually, here's the interesting thing, right? Like, we at eBay have a lot of secondary market data, but the primary data belongs to their brand. Eventually, those dots have to connect to get full traceability, right? And if you look at a Gen Z consumer really cares about when they buy a product, like what they're actually doing for the world. Imagine a world where you actually know the carbon footprint of every step from the brand's primary production into what's going on in the secondary market. A lot of that is coming to play. I know organizations doing that in the diamond industry, for example, in other areas. But I think this is where, this is going to take a collective effort. This is not one company, like companies like Fashionphile, eBay, brands, and many others have to come together to have a shared data practice in order to really, really build the right sustainable offering to the next generation of consumers. And the brands are a critical factor of this, because that primary data and their sources of production are held by them. We don't know what that is, right? I think that coming into the market across traceability, where primary, secondary comes together, I think we're going to get there one day in the future.
I do too.
It's a good transition to one of the last questions I wanted to ask you both before we created some time for the audience to ask you questions. And I mean, that question is, if I were to push both of you to look around the corner, we've talked a lot about the evolution up until now, but if I were to push you both to look around the corner and describe how you see not just resale and luxury resale evolving, but even this concept of luxury as an asset, luxury as a medium of exchange, that concept evolving, I'd be curious if you could paint what you think that future looks like for both of us. And Sarah, Tirath, I mean, happy for either of you to jump in first.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah. No, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I see, the less friction there is in resale. I think that's going to lead to more and more participation. And especially as the younger generation continues to grow up in retail and shopping on the primary and secondary markets, and who are so fluent and very comfortable with technology, because what Tirath and I and all of our retail friends are doing is not something new. I mean, we talk about, like, we could be talking about cave people bartering, and trading. Like, this is not new. This is so old, what we're talking about here. What we are doing, in resale, is adding technology and scale to something, which honestly, what's most exciting to me is, again, the accessibility to, I mean, think about the amazing vintage shops that you have here in New York City. Amazing. And in LA, incredible. But what if you live in Biloxi, Mississippi? There was a time when you didn't have access to that. Now you have access to all of the brands, everything you want, from platforms like Fashionphile or the Real and all of our friends. But also, if you're a mom and pop consignment shop, many of those people put their entire inventories on eBay and all these platforms. And so now there's just accessibility for everyone to be able to participate. And I feel like younger people are really, obviously, very highly motivated by the sustainability piece. As we know, they're also just more comfortable with technology in the first place. We find that, like, there's friction for someone being able to sell this particular item, this Rolex. There's a certain amount of comfort you have to have with using an app and uploading photos and downloading, and there's a certain amount of comfort you have to have around that. And so a lot of us are providing means to work around that. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can drop it off at Neiman Marcus. We'll take care of you. Again, Tirath has got they've got working on some projects at eBay, and other brands are doing other things. They'll come to your house. Like, we're kind of finding workarounds, but I feel like the younger generation, these things they're going to be fluent, so comfortable, and it's going to look totally different, in 5 years. And quite frankly, the brands will all be participating in 5 years, which will make it also interesting and different.
Yeah, and I agree with Sarah, Rahul, and I actually break it down everything to this device here in my hand. Really, like, the evolution of this device and the power of this device and what that generation is going to do. Like, see a world where the camera here is just, you're going to instantly get your value, one button, done. Or, hey, can you just, here's the photos of all the Chanel bags I have sitting in my house. Click a button, get a pickup done. Seamless, efficient, and being able to get your storytelling out there with this device. That's the power here. So really, I think that's, I mean, we spoke a lot about traceability, NFTs. I think the other big movement in the mobile device right now is live shopping is just booming right now. So I think a lot of that's going to increase in storytelling, but it's the really power of how your phones are going to be leveraged, and the data you have as organizations and a company, and all this data that we spoke about earlier, and how it could be evolved on blockchain to give you the right market pricing for turning your assets into currency right through your mobile phone, right? So I think that's the power. Your digital wallet's going to be powerful. So I'm super excited by that. And that I don't think we're too far away at all. I mean, we already see a lot of that innovation coming together, a lot of investments and venture capital going into that area. So super excited by that.
I mean, this is how crazy it is, because I started selling on eBay in 1999, as you know. There were nobody had digital cameras at this time. Nobody. I didn't. eBay sellers like myself took 35 millimeter film pictures, developed them onto a floppy disk at CVS. eBay did not have photo hosting, so we're hosting the photos on PhotoBucket or something and using HTML to get them into eBay. I could never have imagined the world that there is today with a phone that's taking the photos. And so when we look, that was 20 years ago. What's happening in 20 years? Are we all in, is it AR? Like, it's like a virtual closet, like in the metaverse? I don't know. I really think that there's something that's beyond our imagination, because quite frankly, the experience we have right now, what I'm doing today, I could not have imagined. It would have sounded cool, but nobody had invented the Palm Pilot. Was like super cool technology. Soon up, you couldn't accept a credit card on eBay in those early days. So as technology is evolving, and we're going to look at this evolution, which is just happening faster and faster, there's going to be tools and things available that, that potentially we can imagine that seem like science fiction, but then those are the new reality. And I think it could be in the AR space. It could be who knows what, but how we're able to share these products in 5-10 years. It'll be exciting to think.
Sarah, you were just using some terms, floppy disks and Palm Pilots that I suspect our younger audience might need some pictures to know those references. But right. But what I take away also is there's this matching of consumer capability A lot of that is unlocked by the phone. A lot of that is unlocked by expectation and trust building. And that's matched by a lot of the work that I've heard you both describing in terms of creating either exchanges or guarantees that are kind of the flip side of bringing together then buyers and sellers on your platforms and marketplaces. We have 4 or 5 minutes left. And so I want to ask our audience to directly ask some of their questions to you both, just given the wealth of knowledge that you have. I believe our first question is going to come from Bill, who's based in New York, and he should be joining us on screen in just a moment, although it normally takes 15 or 20 seconds or so for the audience to be able to come on screen. So we'll give that person just a second, and then hopefully we'll get their question.
You're good at filling that time. You've practiced.
I'm doing my best. It's not my first time.
Right here.
And here's Bill, right on time. Although, Bill, if you can hear us, if you could turn on your video and go off mute. There we go. Hey.
Sorry about that. Okay. Well, thank you, BoF, for organizing this excellent webinar, and to the panelists for the great discussion. I'm Bill Detweiler from Fernbrook Capital in New York. As an active investor in the e-commerce ecosystem, including recent investments in resale, re-commerce software, and marketplace companies, my question is, picking up on Tirath's comment on protecting brand value and trust, traceability, and transparency, knowing how protective companies are of their brands and IP, what do you all see as the pros and cons of third-party marketplaces, resale marketplaces versus brand-controlled resale, re-commerce platforms as far as protecting brand value?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, Bill. So thank you for bringing that up. So at eBay, we really take this seriously. We have what we call a Vero program, right? The Vero program is basically when brands can submit any issues or situations happening with their IP, apparel imports, or other issues. So that is something we take very seriously, and our team monitors. Secondly, our teams have relationships with brands, and we have an open line of communication, right? At the end of the day, we want to make the consumer marketplaces the most transparent we can. We invite the brands to team up with us, partner with us to help us make that a better place as well. And then lastly, when you talk about things like NFTs and traceabilities, that is something that needs to happen with the brands, right? And that is really important, and keeping them together versus not together, right? Because that's where issues or other situations of lack of transparency can open up. So yeah, all those things is something we take very seriously at eBay.
Yeah, and I will say a couple things that are interesting in the luxury space that you may or may not be familiar with, but many of the brands that we sell don't sell online at all. They don't. Chanel doesn't sell online. You can't buy a Chanel bag. You're not buying a Birkin online. You're not buying even Louis Vuitton that sells online. Most of their very popular styles are in and out of on purpose. Keep that very delicate, very careful control of that supply and demands that, as we talk about the brand value. Are they going to want, they're not online at all. Are they going to have a resale platform online when they're not? No, that would be cannibalizing and weird to have their own brand platform in resale, and they're not even online. If you look at, there's ThredUp has trademarked the term RaaS, which is amazing. We participate in RaaS resale as a service. We're the RaaS partner, obviously, for Neiman Marcus, and are in discussions with some of our other brands to provide a similar service. But RaaS resale as a service, if you walk in any mall in America right now, you look at Lululemon and Levi's and Madewell, and they're all participating in resale. What you're going to find when you dig in is that not a single one of those brands out of the 100 brands on the ThredUp RaaS website that are showcasing all of the brands that are participating one way or the other, nobody, not one, is doing resale themselves, hiring a resale specialist and mail us your leggings, we'll wash them. And they're not doing that. They all are working with a resale partner, a resale as a service partner. And so the brands are going to need particular help. This is a lot of what we do every day. It's so much work. And in luxury, you have 3 additional jobs that you don't really have in the kind of more accessible space. The first one is you have to accurately identify that particular item with specificity, because number two, you got to price it accurately, because we can't get away with just paying, if you resell other things that are in the mall, they might give $10 for every pair of jeans. We can't do that. Everything has a specific price, and then we have to authenticate. And that's something that actually the brands are not able to do at scale. And so they will all need a partner. And we would love to be a partner for some. We can't be a partner for all. We hope that some of our friends in resale can also share the burden and the blessing and be able to help participate in that. But I think that what you're going to find is the consumer is demanding it. We are talking, I'm sure eBay is talking, and all of our friends in resale are talking to the brands like never before. And they're all saying, we know we have to get in. It's not if, but how and when. How do we do this without upending that delicate supply demand balance? Like, how do we do it in a way that's right for our brand? What does that look like? But in my view, a lot of them are going to need to rely on third-party platforms to sell a lot of the stuff that they don't want. Even if they did showcase things on their site, they're not going to want to have this season's product in their site. They might not want some things are made back in the 90s that, quite frankly, were licensed out and they're not super proud of. They might not want those on their site. And so we got eBay and ourselves and other platforms that sell vintage and all eras. So, but great question.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill, for asking that question.
Thanks.
We have just a few minutes, I think, for one question more, and then we'll have to bring this BoF Live to a close. But I believe our second question is going to come from Clarissa, who's in the Philippines, and hopefully they will be joining us on screen in just a second.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Clarissa.
Hi, I'm Clarissa from Manila. Okay, thank you for the talk. My question is, do you see live selling of luxury items effective, or maybe a bigger part of the near future aside from online selling?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Yeah, we are really bullish on that. It's a couple things that are driving it. One, we've launched this so far and we're in the early days, but we expect it to scale up next year. We've done it in collectibles. We had our first event about 3 weeks ago in the handbag space. We had about 26,000 viewers. I mean, and with one of our great selling partners, Linda Stuff, selling handbags. And it had a lot of engagement, a lot of great questions, a lot of smiley faces and hearts going all over the place, which is really fun, right? The social media and the conversational commerce, which is a huge trend component of live shopping, is great. So we're really excited about live shopping, or what I also like to call live auctions as well. And we have another one coming up in watches in early December. We're going to see a jewelry one coming up. We're excited to really accelerate this next year. But yeah, there's a major trend. As you know, a lot of it did start in the Asian markets and it's become so big in that market. And we're starting to see it really take off in the US.
Yeah, we have too. And it's been really interesting because I'm shocked at the engagement that we get, and the conversion in that. It's like these things are available online. You could just buy them on the website. But for some reason in this platform, the engagement, it becomes, I guess an opportunity for us to serve up some of the special things. You don't have to dig out and find them yourself. We're serving up these things and the engagement is so positive, and the conversion has been just really, encouraging for us. So yeah, that's something that we're going to look at continuing to invest more time and energy into. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Clarissa.
Thank you.
For your question. And that will bring us to a close. So I first wanted to thank both of you, Tirath and Sarah, for being so willing to share with us not just your time, but your perspective on the space. And also, of course, thank you for eBay for partnering with us, as we've spent the past weeks and months really kind of quantitatively exploring a lot of the concepts that we were discussing today. And so to that end, for our audience who's interested in learning more about the work that we did and our findings, the report, The Rise of Resale Luxurious Currency, is available on our website, businessoffashion.com. And otherwise, we look forward to hosting you all on a future BoF Live. Keep an eye out for future events, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you all soon. Thank you.